Today we're installing the Madjax Apex Body Kit designed to fit the EZ-GO RXV. Included with this kit is a new rear Bagwell, rear bumper, access cover, front grille, lower grille, front fenders, center hood, rear kick panel, rear body fenders, headlights and light bar, tail lights. You'll also receive a main light kit harness, various reverse jumper harnesses, a brake switch, your Lux Module, a USB fast charger, a horn, the turn signal assembly, and a 48-volt converter. To assemble the front cowl, first lay the hood down on a nice soft surface that will prevent any scratches to the coating. Lay the hood upside down and attach the fenders to each side of the hood using the M4 by 12mm button head screws provided. Make sure to hand tighten your hardware, or if you use an electric tool, do it at the lowest possible setting to avoid over tightening and cracking your body. Once the fenders are attached to the hood, double check to make sure that the gap is tight between the fender and the hood itself. If one side needs to be adjusted, simply back out the screw a little bit, push the fender tighter to the hood and retighten. Attach the threaded clips to the bosses of the center hood panel. Note that the threaded part of the clips should be closest to the hood. Secure the front grille to the three bosses using the M5 by 15mm flathead screws. Install 4 threaded clips to the headlight mounting points and make sure that the threaded parts of the clips are pointed to the light hole opening. Using a T25 Torx socket and the M5 screws provided with the kit, attach the headlight to the threaded clips. Then using a T20 Torx socket, secure the bottom of the headlight to the fender. Repeat these steps on the other side. Using a T20 Torx socket, attach the lower grille to the upper grille using 3 M4 screws provided with the kit. Next, we're going to attach the light bar. First, you want to slide the wire harnesses into the grille. Then note that the outside edges of the light bar are angled to match the front grille as well, and then slide the light bar into place. For now, plug in the red bullet connectors coming from the back side of the DRL light bar to the red bullet connectors coming from each headlight. Using a soft surface, assemble the rear fenders to the rear kick panel using 2 M4 screws per side and secure with a T20 Torx socket. To install the rear taillights, first attach the threaded clips to the taillight mounting points with the threaded end towards the taillight cutout. Attach the taillight to the mounting points using 4 M5 screws and a T25 Torx socket. You can repeat this on the other side. Install the rear bumper to the rear fenders using 1 M4 screw per side and a T20 Torx socket. Install the threaded clips to the rear fenders as shown, with the threaded side of the clips facing the inside of the rear body. If installing the Apex body on a gas vehicle, use the guide line on the inside of the rear kick panel and drill out a 1-inch hole using a step-up bit or a spade drill bit before attaching the body to the cart. Place the new rear Bagwell into the body cavity and secure into place with 12 M5 screws. As you're tightening the screws, make sure to press the rear body and the Bagwell together to minimize the gap, and then fully tighten each screw. To disassemble your cart, first thing you want to do, switch the key to the off position, and on gas vehicles, engage the parking brake. To disassemble your cart, you want to remove the canopy, seat cushions, motor cover, sweater basket, and rear struts and strut boot. You want to remove and retain the F&R handle using a number 2 Phillips tip. If your cart has an EFI engine with no choke, remove the cover plate shown and retain. If your cart has a choke, there's 3 ways to remove it. Either take the nut off the back side of the choke, remove the screws or rivets from the face of the choke plate, then remove the choke from the mount, and then pull through the body. Be sure to note the steps, specifically the choke mount, for reinstallation later. Using a T45 Torx socket, remove the rear body screws and the 4 screws that hold the hinges and body to the frame. Temporarily remove the floor mat retainers to access the 2 screws that hold the rear body to the frame on each side. Then remove the 2 bolts that hold the rear Bagwell to the frame. To remove floor mat, take out all the Christmas tree rivets and disconnect the horn button if needed. Remove the floor mat and set aside for later. Remove the rear body. If you have an OEM light kit on the cart, disconnect any taillights if needed. Secure the rear taillight harnesses to the frame out of the way. If you have an aftermarket light kit, we will remove this harness in a later step. To remove the pedal box cover, take out the rivets that hold it to the floor and save for reinstallation. Using a 10mm socket, remove the nuts from the bottom of the cup holders. Then pull up and out on the top of the cup holders to free it from the panel. Be sure to unplug any accessories from the cup holders and retain for reinstallation later. Using a T27 Torx socket, remove the 4 screws that secure the front cowl to the instrument panel. With the cowl loose, unplug the headlights or any other accessories from the front cowl. If you have aftermarket lights, remove the wiring harness. If you have an OEM light kit, secure the harness to the front frame. Using a T27 Torx socket, remove the screw securing the bottom of the bumper to the vehicle. Then, using a 15mm socket, remove the 2 nuts that hold the bumper to the shock mount and discard your old bumper. Remove and discard the lower bumper bracket using a 15mm socket by loosening the rear 2 bolts and removing the front 2 bolts. Save the front 2 bolts for reinstallation later and tighten the rear 2 as they will not be used again. Before we install the harness, I want to tell you about the layout. Up front, you'll see 2 4-pin connectors for the headlights. The red goes to the passenger side. Then you'll have a 2-pin Lux Module plug. Then a purple and black spade connectors that go to the horn. Further down you'll see a 12-pin turn signal connector. Then you'll notice 4 spade connectors, 2 go to a USB and 2 to an additional optional accessory. The bullet connectors go to your brake switch. The pink and red wires for the 2-pin here go to your reverse relay. The red and black 2-pin connector is for your harness power supply. And finally, you'll see 2 6-pin connectors that go to your rear taillights. Again, red goes to the passenger side. Feed your headlight plugs in through the chase below where the cup holders install and into the front cowl area. Place your harness in the center floor channel and feed the taillights to the rear of the cart. Secure your harness with zip ties so that it's not touching any battery or engine components. Using a 10mm socket and a 6mm Allen wrench, remove the 2 bolts from the driver's side of the brake pedal frame as shown. Then place the brake switch bracket in place and reinstall the 2 bolts. Press the brake pedal to ensure good engagement of the switch when the pedal is depressed. If needed, loosen the bolts and adjust the position of the switch, and then retighten. Re-engage the parking brake when finished. Locate the yellow and red bullet connectors from your light kit harness and plug that into your brake switch. Then tuck your wires into the floor channel and pull any slack to the battery compartment. You can now replace the pedal box cover with the rivets from earlier. Now we're going to install our reverse relay harness. This is the small jumper harness with 2 white wires on one end. Both have a spade connector on them and a single white wire with a 2-pin connector on the other end. Plug the female spade connector from the gas reverse light harness to the micro switch. Then plug the removed wire from the micro switch into the male spade connector of the harness. Then attach the 2-pin connector with the single white wire to the 2-pin connector coming from the light kit harness with the red and pink wire. Before we install the turn signal assembly, I'm going to go over some of the features. On the outside here, you'll notice the horn button. The first rotary switch has 2 positions. The first one is your daytime run lights. The second is your headlights. This kit also has a high beam feature. To do that, you need to pull back on the stock towards the driver. In the middle, you'll notice another rotary switch here with 2 positions. These are for additional accessories, which we'll explain later. And then finally, your turn signals. There's also an integrated hazard switch built into the turn signal stock itself. For your turn signal module, on one end you'll also see some bullet connectors. There's 2 male bullet connectors for the positive and 2 female bullet connectors for negative. These are for additional accessories such as fog lights or light bars, and they're worked off of the turn signal assembly's rotary switch. You can go ahead and attach your turn signal assembly to the steering column by taking out 2 of the screws and using the clamps to wrap around the column, and using the same screws to reattach using a number 2 Phillips tip. We will come back to this step later. We're now ready to install the rear body to the cart. Place the rear body on the back of the cart and ensure that the tabs on the bottom side of the fenders are on the outside of the vehicle frame. The tabs on the bottom of the kick panel must be engaged with the corresponding slots in the floorboard for the body to fully be seated in place. Using the hinges and screws retained from earlier, secure the body to the frame using a T45 torque socket. If you're installing a rear seat kit, attach the main brackets before moving on to the next step. Attach the access cover to the rear body using a T25 torque socket and 7 M5 screws provided with the kit. Using a T45 torque socket, bolt the front of the access cover to the rear body and vehicle frame using the bolts and washers from earlier. Don't forget to reattach your strut boots to the body. Again, if you're installing a rear seat kit, you want to add the Bagwell brackets now. Otherwise, use a T45 torque socket and secure the Bagwell to the rear of the vehicle frame using the OEM screws from earlier. Using the same T45 torque socket, attach both sides of the body to the vehicle frame using the stock screws and washers from earlier. Now's a good time to go ahead and attach your taillights to the light kit harness. Reinstall your F&R shifter handle using the stock screw. And reattach your choke cables or your EFI cover plate. To power up our light kit, you're going to locate the red and black wires with the 2-pin connector coming from our light kit and plug it into the 2-pin connector that has the 2 ring terminals on it. Then we're going to attach the red wire to the positive terminal of the battery and the black wire to the negative terminal. Note the converter is not used for gas carts. You can now reinstall your floor mat with your retained rivets. Reinstall your floor mounted horn if needed. Moving to the front of the cart, we're going to plug in the purple and black wires to either post of the horn and secure it to the front of the cart. The wire orientation on the horn does not matter. For the Lux module, the 2-pin connector goes to the light kit harness. The 3-pin connector goes to the DRL light bar, and then the 2-pin connectors with the 2 bullet connectors will go to the headlights with the corresponding color connectors. Secure the Lux module and all the loose wires up at the front dash cavity. Attach the front cowl to the frame using the lower fascia tabs. These tabs go to the outside of the frame and attach it where we removed the bumper bracket earlier using the retained hardware. Next, plug in each headlight's 4-pin connector as well as the 2-pin connector for each side with the corresponding colors. Be sure to plug in the red bullet connectors as well. And finally, the 3-pin connector from the DRL light bar. Pivot the cowl upward into place under the dash trim panel. Ensure the cowl is fully seated under the trim panel on both sides and along the top edge. Secure the cowl using the 4 screws retained from earlier and a T27 torque socket. Once these 4 screws are in place, use a 15mm socket and tighten the lower bolts at the front of the frame under the fascia. Reattach your side skirts using the retained hardware and a T45 torque socket. Route the turn signal assembly harness and module under the cup holders and into the dash cavity, and then plug the 12-pin connector into the light kit harness 12-pin connector. Attach the column cover to the column and make sure that the harness is inside the column cover chase. Ensure that the height is at the right position for you and tighten the clamps on the back side of the turn signal assembly with a number 2 Phillips tip. Then install the back cover. To install your USB, you have 2 options. You can use a 1 1/8 inch paddle bit or use the ring nut on the back side of the USB as a template and mark the inside out for your cutting line and use a rotary cutting tool to cut your hole out. Find a good area that is free of obstructions on the back side. Make sure there's no wires or metal pieces behind that location, and then cut out your hole for your USB. Place your USB into the dash and secure with the ring nut supplied. You'll notice on the back side there is a plus and minus, plus for the red wire, minus for the black wire. Reattach any dash accessories as needed. Then reinstall your cup holder using the retained hardware from earlier. At this point, you can go ahead and reattach your rear struts, sweater basket, and canopy as needed. And finally, safely secure your harness using the provided zip ties. You've now finished installing your Madjax Apex Body designed for the EZ-GO RXV.